You are listening to This Sacrosanct Life, a podcast for creatives, misfits, and seekers of all kinds. This is for you if you identify as a spiritual being having a human, physical, and emotional experience, and sometimes struggle to focus on what's actually important. I'm your host, Ebony Allard, aka Ebony Alchemy. I'm an alchemist, an international award-winning master coach, a facilitator, author, and artist. I've been in the personal development, creativity, and entrepreneurship spaces all of my life, and I have a special interest in empowerment, embodiment, and full self-expression. Stick around to hear real and raw conversations about the reality of personal growth, self-actualization, and mysticism through the lens of curiosity as I ask, what's actually valuable, important, hallowed, or sacred to us? Hey everyone, welcome to the final episode of This Sacrosanct Life for Season 1. I have been really leaning into what is sacrosanct in my life, and as a result, also leaning into where do I need to create more structure for myself so that I can experience more freedom. And one of the ways that I am going to be doing that in 2023 is to be much more structured. I mean, it's pretty structured around how I do this podcast, but much more structured, even more structured about how I do it going forward. And what that means is that I've already planned out all my guests for season 2 that will take us to the end of June, and I've started booking in and understanding who I want for guests for season 3 from July onwards. And that means a couple of things for you guys. It means that in this episode, I'm going to really look back and round up this first season and kind of drill into what I've learned from my guests and also from my own experience of living this last season, and then also explain a little bit more about what you can expect from season 2 and how that's going to work. So currently, if you don't know how the kind of podcast works, is I've got This Sacrosanct Life podcast, which is where we really explore like what is actually sacred, valuable, important, non-negotiable in your life, and how are you living that? Because it's one thing to say, oh yeah, my family is important or my health is important, but how are you actually living in line with that, valuing that on a day-to-day basis in your thoughts, your beliefs, your behaviours, your actions, and kind of what hardens into your character and who you are in the world. And then there's a behind-the-scenes part of the podcast called Sacrosanct Secrets, where I dive a little deeper with my guests and ask them questions. And that is for subscribers only. It's only £5 a month. And that gets you that additional content. And going forward, a load of other pieces as well. So I'm going to be opening the Maven Haven from January. I have officially received the trademark information, so I can now do that. And that is my community space for you to come and be around other people just like you, other misfits, other mavens, other neurodivergent or neurospicy folk, or creatives or innovatives. You know, it's a non-exclusive and as inclusive as I can be for us kind of a space where we talk about the things that really matter to us. And for me, that's mysticism and self-development, personal development, growth, understanding, awareness, insight, using human design, mysticism, numerology, you know, all of those kind of things in a way that makes our lives more purposeful, more meaningful. And that Maven Haven is also available for those people who are doing my self-study courses, who maybe want a bit of extra support. And I've broken it down there like this because sometimes we want support and community around us and a little accountability and other people to discuss things with, and other times we want to just get the content. And so I've broken my self-study courses down in this way so you can go and learn and watch videos or listen to audios from me without any schedule or without any live element, or you can add on the Maven Haven to get my support and community support. And what that will look like is kind of asynchronous coaching available. So you will ask a question and I will reply either by video or audio or with something written, whichever is more your learning style, but also most relevant to the question that you're asking in that space. And it's going to be available for all sorts of support, whether you are doing my self-study courses or not. And in that way, you will get to learn just by being in there, and also get to specialise and go in on a particular subject if there's a course of mine or an offer or an apothecary item that appeals to you. And as part of access to the Maven Haven, you also get access to Sacrosanct Secrets. And inside the Maven Haven, I will share who my guests are, who I've got coming up joining me, and you will be able to go, ooh, and ask me things to ask them specifically, and those will then be available inside Sacrosanct Secrets. And if they've got any special freebies or extra bonuses or discounts or offers that they want to give you, then they will be available for Sacrosanct Secret listeners. So that is the plan going forward, and I am really, really excited about who I've got coming on, why I've invited them, where we're going, and having a plan actually ahead of time of the kind of topics that I want to make sure that we include has been really interesting for me to map out. Whereas this season so far, it has been a much more manifesting generator, sacral, lit up, exciting, in the moment, following my nose kind of a job. And I have loved the guests that we've had on and the conversations that we've had. You know, right at the beginning of this season, I spoke to Annemiek, and Annemiek and I spoke about tapping into your own inner sacred space. And that's something that is a huge part of my work and my daily practices, and I hope yours as well. You know, really, what are the tools, the rituals, the routines, the practices that you have that are sacrosanct, that help you tap into yourself, into your innate wisdom, into your signature vibration. And for me, that, you know, there's being in nature, I created 45 Soft, which is free and is for you to go and explore what it really means to tap into your softness and to be with nature and to listen to that inner space. And I also use my value filter system in, you know, I call it the compass for a reason. And I use it every day to guide me which direction to take, which decisions to take, and to know that I'm on course. I'm really being with my values, being with beauty, being with magic, with essence, making sure that I am experiencing enough puckish and playful times in my life too, is what stops me from being all work and no play. And then later I got to speak to Nicola, and we spoke about nourishing grief and what that really means, what it means to honour grief in our lives and to really honour all of the different emotions that we have, because anyone who knows me will know that I see emotions as not good or bad, but as experiences, as wise deities that come and sit with us for a while and often have something to share or to show with us. And as I deepen my awareness of human design and also embodied emotion and really understanding how the energy moves through the nervous system and the different systems within our body, I become more and more aware of how imperative, how sacrosanct it is that we honour our grief, that we honour all of our emotions, whether that is our rage, our anger, our disgust, you know, all of it, so that we can be healthy beings. And then in episode 3, I spoke with Jessica and we talked about how your life is a medicine. And really that's a following on, a continuation of this idea that life is here to be experienced. And very often when I'm working with people, they say to me, you know, what is my purpose? What am I here for? And my answer to that is really simple. You're here to live and honour the incarnation intentions. And, you know, I talk more about them in the in Universal Laws, my program, which is Hermetics and Universal Law Uncovered. And I go into the incarnation intentions and the Universal Laws so that we really understand that. But overall, you are here to experience being both human and divine, to have this body. Like when you were a soul, when you were light form, when you were energy, you didn't have a body. And as such, you weren't able to experience emotion and or anything in your physicality, in your physical body. And being able to have a physical, intellectual and emotional experience is the gift of being human. And so right there in your life, the way that you get to live it, the things that come your way for you to experience are the medicine. And for me, we unpacked that a little bit in that episode, but for me, it's such a different way of living, and it's such an important way of living. And when I look back at my lineage and my innate medicine gifts and the way that I see the world, the way that I have this ability to be the bird and look over everything, but also come into the tiny details, that is because I'm working with medicine, working with the big and the small and the great and the tiny aspects of being human. And it gets to be fun, which is what I talked about with Zoe in episode 4. And that's so important to me, because so many people see healing, see this journey of personal growth, of self-actualization as one that is heavy and hard, and is coming from an attitude or an orientation of difficulty, of a problem to be solved, of something that is diseased or needs to be fixed or healed. And I really get that language, and I want to move us into a place of like the whole experience of being human is around experiencing, and like what do we want to experience next. And there will be ups and downs and ins and outs, and what we really get to lean into is this place of equanimity and this place of wonder and awe. And then in episode 5, I talked with Nikki about, are you looking for a guru? And whether that's in your yoga class or in your coaching or in any part of your own personal growth and development, really checking in with yourself. Am I making myself my own authority, or am I expecting somebody else to have the answers for me here? And more I've been kind of saying, in many ways, my role is that of a spiritual GP, because you come to me with overall things, or we talk about your life, in a bit way a functional medicine doctor would, right? Like with a really holistic attitude, looking at your history, your lineage, your design, like what you're here to look at. And then maybe we'll refer you to an expert. But I also, for me, it's really important that you understand that you have sovereignty and agency. And with Katie in episode 6, we talk about personal growth as a political issue. And it is, in many ways, this work isn't the same for everybody. And there are aspects of equality and equity that need to come into the discussion. There are aspects of race and of socioeconomic background and awarenessing that it is useful for us to have. And I share this because for me, it is not a one-size-fits-all. And I've been saying this for 11 or 12 years, but I'm reiterating it now because nothing I do is one-size-fits-all. And for a little while, I totally got sucked in. How do I make this easier for me? How do I make a greater impact? How do I follow the capitalist, colonized version of business? And it's really important to me that I share that at this time I am coming back to my roots, which is that everything is incredibly personalized. Yes, there are self-study courses in an information sharing way, and I'm really dividing my work out into teach and coach, or teach and facilitate, so that you are able to understand the nuance and get equity from my work and from my teaching, and then model that out into your own life as well. In episode 7, I then spoke with Ray, and we talked about the art of story and and evolution. Like we talked about storytelling and art and evolution and how we grow and how you get to tell your own story and be the director and the writer and the producer of that story. And that was a really fun episode for me. And I've actually, as I'm recording this, I've just learned that she has had her baby, and they both look very well and happy, which is good to know. And so, yeah, it's an ongoing thing for all of us to tap into our own evolution and our own story, and particularly at this time of year. You know, what is the story that you're telling, and what is the story you're telling about how far you've come, but also about where you will go from here? And are you telling the story as the heroine or hero, or as the victim of your circumstance or situation? And it's a really great time to evaluate that again. In episode 8, I spoke with Helen, and we talked about astrology as a frame for faith, and really had a hilarious episode where we really conversed. It was not an interview, it was a conversation, a really beautiful one, about how we both use astrology as a stepping off point. And for me, all of the tools and frameworks that I use are always a stepping off point. They're not gospel, and I never want you to take anything I say. In fact, I just had someone message me this morning to say that she's been living her human design for a year, and found out this morning that her birth time was, like, she'd given PM when it was actually AM. And for me, it's like, if we're really dropping into, does this feel true for me? That would have been discovered earlier, but also, take everything with a pinch of salt. Like, is this empowering for me? And very often I see people using human design to say, if I'm not invited, I can't do this, or if it's not, using it to be something that limits them rather than empowers them. And so I really want to remind you to take on any framework as a frame, right, for faith and for discovery and for curiosity and for exploration. And what's really beautiful about that is that then in episode 9, I spoke with Dara, and we talked about moving beyond codependent coaching. And, ultimately the reason I'm sharing all of this is so that you step out of codependency in all of your relationships, including your coaching, including with your clients, all of it, and step into that place of like, what is beyond codependency? What if I get to be me and you get to be you, and we get to have a beautifully interdependent relationship where we do need and ask for support and help and attention from one another, but don't rely on or collapse into the other. Because ultimately that is a trauma response, right? Like, we hold on really tight and then we collapse into the other. And I definitely own that pattern in some areas of my life. And I see it in my body playing out sometimes. And I'm working on it, actively working on every day. Like, what is in between holding on too tight and collapsing? There's this beautiful piece of honouring your own masculine and your own inner feminine, and creating structure for yourself so that you are supported and that you can surrender and be in that place. Which leads me again on nicely to my episode with Duke, where we talked about the truth, where we talked about pain to power, and using the pain that you've experienced in your life to actually become powerful, to reclaim your power, to look at where your power, your energy, your resource is and how you're using it. And check in, are you using this in a way that feels good to you and is in integrity for you and is in alignment with your values? All of those things to me are hugely, hugely sacrosanct, as is living in communion and living a life of reciprocity, which is what I then talked about with Lou Karen Harris in episode 11. And you can tell from listening, she's one of my favourite people, a really good friend. And it was just such a beautiful episode because we managed to have a conversation and not veer off into too many rabbit holes or tangents. And Lou is a woman who is all in and who walks her talk, and is someone who values both of those things and finds them hugely sacrosanct. It's a real honour to be able to have that conversation with her. And similarly, then in episode 12, Mother or Martyr, Sinead and I talked about 5 minutes piece and the power of 5 minutes piece. And so many of the people that I work with are mothers, and so many of them start their journey with me with I don't have enough time. There just isn't enough time in the day. And they don't often believe that the work that we do can fit into the pockets of time around them, or that you do have, and that they will create more time for you, more spaciousness in your world. And that conversation with Sinead about that, but also about PMDD and about ADHD in women, and also being the mother of neurodivergent kids, was a really powerful episode. And that takes us to the end of the season. And so if you are listening to this and there's one that you've missed or a couple, then please go back and listen to them. And if you haven't yet left a review, either send me a message so that I can screenshot it and stick it up on the website, or share it, or maybe if you're on Apple, please go and rate and review and subscribe there. If you are a listener on Spotify, I think you can now rate, potentially even review there. And if you're listening anywhere else, again, the reviews and the rating and the subscription make a massive, massive difference to this podcast, and enables me to raise the caliber and the quality of the guests and get some people that I'm always excited to speak to, my friends and connections. Been in this industry a long, long time, and there are some fantastic people that I get to speak to. But the more listenership that we've got, the more clout that we've got for me to ask for precious time from other people as well. What I can tell you is that in season 2, so far already recorded, I have an episode with Vix Maxwell. I've got one with Gail Berry and also with Jamie Catto. And we have got some other wonderful, wonderful guests and friends lined up to come and speak with you. Now, that little alarm in the background was actually a reminder that I have a client very, very soon. And if you're listening to this and you are interested in perhaps working with me, I offer a variety of different ways that you can coach. Other than the Maven Haven, there are one-on-one experiences. Going into 2023, I have the Vox Pass, where you can get unlimited Telegram or WhatsApp access to me. I do Glow Up, which is a 3-month coaching experience, which will take you on a beautiful journey of self-discovery. I do VIP days, which is a very intense process where we can spend a day together either in Spain or in the UK, and really dive into your value filter, creating the compass and then the map for your life going forward. And if you've already done that work, then we can dive into ceremony and your design, start looking at your human design and where there are some places of conditioning or deconditioning, creating some really sacred experiences for you to remember your wisest, truest, most powerful self. My sessions get to include a little embodiment, a little alchemy, a little strategy as well, if that feels good. It's a mixture of talking and feeling or being in your body. And I am always up for having a discussion about what that might look like. Some of my stuff takes place online as well, if you are in the UK or able to get to Spain. And in 2023, I'm going to be in Boston at some point in the US. I'm not entirely sure of dates yet. But if any of that feels interesting to you, do reach out, send me a message on WhatsApp or on Instagram, or come to our community call, which is the first Tuesday of every month. And you are so welcome to come and experience hanging out with me and our community for yourself. Sending you loads and loads of love, wishing you a most beautiful holiday season and a winter season wherever you are in the world and however you celebrate this time of year. It's a real honour to have you listen to these shows and to know that I'm not just talking to myself. It means a lot to me. So yeah, if you have enjoyed the podcast this year, if you're looking forward to next year, please rate and review, let me know. And if you are interested in any of the ways that I have talked about working together, or you're not sure, remember that I have an apothecary of options from £44 right the way through to 12.5 grand. So just get in touch with me and we will work out what is best and right for you at this point in time. Sending you loads of love. Thank you so much for listening. And if you have enjoyed this episode, what would be A real gift to me is if you would like it, share it, or share something from it that you're taking away, that you got from it on your own social media platforms or in an email, and make a link to it or come tag me at Ebony Alchemy. I would really, really, really appreciate that. And if you want to subscribe to Sacrosanct Secrets, which is a little bit deeper and we go a little bit further and it's a way of supporting me as a creator, then if you head to ebonyella.com/podcast, all the info that you need is there. Thank you.